Monday, March 7th. Welcome to another episode of Let There Be Talk, brought to you by CactusRadioNetwork.com. You can now find all of my podcasts absolutely free on my network, CactusRadioNetwork.com. The Grail, At Home with Byron Katie, Dark Fonzie, and Let There Be Talk. Go to the website, share it with all your friends, spread the word. All right, here it is, episode number, I think it's 636. Is that what it is? Let me look. Yes, it is 636. And today is a wild episode. Today is basically two friends catching up. Two old friends, man. You're going to hear it right here on the microphone. About 22 years or maybe longer. I don't know, 1999. I sat down and learned how to play guitar and decided to record a solo record. After a year of learning the guitar, I came up with a batch of songs, went into a major studio, saved my money, sold everything I had, and paid for a 24-track tape recording, and made a record called Lone Mountain Serenade. And to this day, I still absolutely love that record. I was proud of it. It was a lot of hard work, and it was a lot of laughs and a lot of great, great friends that helped me make it. And one of them was a man that was fairly unknown back in that day. Like myself, I'm fairly unknown still to this day. But Mr. Jacquire King, met him in the studio by chance. You'll hear that story here. And his work ethic blew my mind. I could relate to it. He was a hard worker. He was a master of Pro Tools. And I hired him to help with the record. And from then on, his career has skyrocketed. He's worked on some of my favorite records that I listen to weekly in my life. I'm talking about Tom Waits' Mule Variations. He did one of the great Modest Mouse records. My favorite one, Good News for People Who Love Bad News. And then he started working with a little band called Kings of Leon. And, he came in on the Aha Shake Heartbreak record. And from there, he got behind the wheels, the dials, the equipment for the massive explosion of Kings of Leon Only by the Night record. Unreal. He's worked with so many people. 40 Grammy nominations. 40. Multiple wins. This man is incredible, his track record. Oh, man, he worked with Cold War Kids, which is one of my favorites. I love that band. And the list goes on and on. Norah Jones. It's just insane to see the stuff he's worked on. It's wild, and I'm so. Oh man, he did Mute Math. Oh God, my buddy Andrew loves Mute Math. Wild. It's unreal. I'm so proud of him, and I'm not one of those guys like fuck him, man. He fucking made it. I'm over here in my fucking party, man. Don't do that. Don't do that in life. Your friends have success. Celebrate it. And be happy for them, man, because it is a lot of hard work to be successful. You can get lucky, but that shit fizzles out quick. But hard work, a lot of times, will pay off. And it was great to talk to him. Be a little patient on some of the interview towards the back end. It's got some R2-D2 auto-tune vibe because he was out in the Bahamas, and it just reminds me that when you move somewhere far away, they're going to have shitty Wi-Fi, so hopefully you don't have to ever look at your computer again. And that's why you moved away somewhere beautiful like the Bahamas, where you could just toss your computer in the ocean and be like, I don't need this. I got starfish. I got fucking seals. I got sand. I don't know. I'm crazy today. It was a great weekend out there in San Diego. Thank you if you came out to the shows at the Grand Comedy Club in Escondido. Learned real quick that Escondido is not San Diego. It's off to the side of it. And if you tell people you're in San Diego, they'll be like, nah, no, you're not. You're in Escondido. That's the snobby San Diego people. But great shows. Constantly trying to figure out how to be a funny headliner. It's definitely the hardest challenge I've ever had in my life. And I enjoy trying to find it. And sometimes it's frustrating and sometimes it's fantastic. But I keep grinding. I don't have any shows on the road for a while now. So if you want to see me, you can see me at the Comedy Store quite a bit. I'll be there all this month, on and off. So just check the listings. I'm there tomorrow night, which is Tuesday, in the main room. I'm also at the Hollywood Improv tonight. Anyway, thank you, everybody, for enjoying the Let There Be Talk. And thank you to all the Patreoners out there. Great Zoom Fest this weekend. Thank you, Patreoners, for your support. It means the world to me. And another bonus episode will be out this week. Merchandise is available. Get those collector item Dark Fonzies. They're almost gone. DeanDelRey.com for your merch. And patreon.com/DeanDelRey for bonus episodes. Let's get into it right now. Enjoy the episode. Thank you, Jacquire King. You are a soldier and a great friend. And I really, really enjoyed this episode. I mean that from the bottom of my heart. It took me back to those old days of playing rock music in San Francisco. And I'm glad I have those memories. They feel great. Here we go. Episode 636, Candles Are Lit, Mr. Jacquire King. What's going on, dude?
Oh, man. Down in the Bahamas.
Oh, you are?
Yeah.
What are you doing? Out there working?
I'm doing some remote work. Yeah, we bought some property down here, so I just closed on it a couple months ago. So down here doing some land clearing and just kind of getting the vibe.
Wow. So is that Compass Studio still out there? What was it called? Corpus Compass or something?
Yeah, Compass was in Nassau. I've never been to Nassau. We're down on Great Exuma, which is like it's one of the out islands. It's down south. Actually, nothing wasn't here and didn't have anything to do with it, but the failed fire festival, whatever that was. That was here.
That's so funny, man, because you think about like how those bands back then were going down to that studio and Back in Black, one of the biggest records of all time made in there. And to think about bands fly out there, soak in the sun, and then, which is usually the disaster for a record, like Comfort and stuff,
Yeah. Well, man, there's so much to talk about. It's great to see you. I have. It is unreal. It's been like 20 years.
Yeah. Maybe. So I think around 99, so longer.
Could be since the last time that we spoke and saw each other, man. But to go back to your little question there, I do have, or your comment, I do have my own, desires and, dreams to make some music down here.
Yeah. Do you dream to move there permanently?
I think over the years we'll spend more and more time here. We're acquiring some beautiful land that, things move slow down here. It's expensive. So it'll take, we're just kind of not rolling in here with dumping a bunch of cash. So it'll be, I think within 2 years, we'll have a place down here and I'll begin to spend more and more time. As time goes on, I'll probably spend more and more time. I envision in 10 years, maybe half the time down here.
Yeah. You we'll just see. Turned 55. I just turned 56. So
we're rocking.
Yeah. Oh, right. It's just kind of like we're in our mid 50s and we're enjoying life. It's pretty wild, right?
Yeah. I mean, it's like really, man, it's like in a way you and I are kind of, a lot has changed, but we're kind of like on these paths and it's like almost new chapters, like into new stuff,
Yeah. I think about when I first met you I was completely broke. You were completely broke. I was grinding it, trying to make a solo record. And it's funny. Let's get into this. So my guest today is Jacquire King. If you don't know him, he's a massive, successful record producer, engineer, mixer. Been doing it for years. First met him when I was working on a solo record in San Francisco at a studio that was incredible. And at the time we had a guy working on the record that was more into video games than working, which was not a good formula when you're funding the record yourself, looking for the guy and he's upstairs battling something on TV. But somehow I came across you. I'm not quite sure. I think maybe were you working on the record or did you pop in? I can't remember how you came on board, but mid-record, we got rid of him, or I got rid of him and went with you.
I don't remember. I don't remember the exact sort of moment or how it connected. But yeah, you were working at Toast, right? And
yep.
And yeah, I guess we just kind of got acquainted and yeah, I mean, it just seemed like maybe I probably raised my hand and said, "Hey, dude, it's just like, you could consider me." I have one of my fondest memories of our sessions together is remember when we went over to Dan Alexander's the New Coast spot down there at the old Golden State Recorders down there at Second and Harrison.
That was amazing.
That session was killer.
Oh yeah, with Ronnie Crawford. I've got pictures from that. Me and you. I've got the Vox AC30 tan, and I'm playing a gold top, and I'm wearing a Rage Against the Machine shirt. I got photos from it. It's wild. I think how we hooked up was I just remembered. I was asked to play harmonica on the Third Eye Blind cover of Train in Vain. You were editing the Nightmare vocals, and they had me come in and play harmonica. This is how we met. And at the time, of course, I've always only recorded analog and tape, but you, before anybody that I knew, was a Pro Tools genius back when they were fucking clunky and weird, but you were just killing it with this cut and paste and shit, which now I do every day of my life with my podcast and shit. But back then I was like, whoa, look at this guy. I mean, it was so different back then because it was like, that was computers in the room and you're like, what, but you were cut and pasting and you could just fix this performance because he just came in and went, ba, 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 see ya, and left because he was dating Charlize Theron at the time or whatever. And then you were in there like, I can't believe I got to fix this. He just sang once and left, and that's how we met. I remember.
That's right.
Yeah.
100%. Yeah. That's exactly how we met. And then we kind of carried on from there and finished your album.
Yeah.
It was good, man. Yeah. Like Pro Tools, it's like, it's like I realized early on that was going to be a really powerful tool of the future. I mean, it's like, and that's how I got the Tom Waits gig because I do all the analog stuff, but then I was also sort of an early adopter of Pro Tools. And so it's like just mixing that stuff up. And, it's all during that time. I mean, what was that like 98?
98.
90? Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
Record came out in 99. And I will tell you this, and I've said this over and over doing comedy, people are like, when are you going to do a special? When are you going to put this out? When are you doing that? And I said, I recorded that record. I learned guitar. It took a year, wrote those songs and went and recorded them. And I still to this day think this record has no cringeworthy moments for me. I listen to it and go, this is a great record, man. And I'm not tooting my horn. I just enjoy it. So I need to enjoy something first before I put it out into the world.
100%, man. No, you're an amazing vocalist. You killed the vocals. I didn't know that you'd only taken a year to learn to play guitar.
Yeah. I hadn't played guitar at all. I was just a singer for years. And then the frustration of hearing stuff in my head, but not knowing how to tell people, no, here. I mean, I could go like, dun, 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 but you just thought if I'm going to continue playing music, and it was the wisest move I ever made because at the time, music was starting to fade off in San Francisco with the .com, destruction of that. And people stopped playing music. So I could go out and play solo acoustic, which worked for me, thank God.
Yeah, man. Yeah, it's like, yeah, that time, yeah, because the year or two after we met, yeah, the San Francisco like decayed really. The music scene decayed super fast.
Yeah.
Like the clubs were getting shut down, and that big rehearsal space that was down there, like south of Army,
Yeah,
like,
downtown.
Yeah, I mean that place, everybody got kicked out of there. There was like hundreds of musicians and just no place to go, no place to play, no place to be. It was just kind of ruined things. And yeah, I kind of made my exit not long after that.
Yeah. So let me get the timeline of this. So you're basically kind of a Pro Tools engineer. You're coming in, you're working on people's projects. We meet, and me being a huge Tom Waits fan, especially Bone Machine and Mule Variations, you end up going to work on Mule Variations after my record. Is this right?
They were kind of, it was around the same time. I think it was, no, it would have been before, man.
Oh, it would have been before.
It would have been just before. It would have been like the year before, because that was pretty sure that was 97, because that record come out in 98. Yeah.
There you go.
Just before.
Right.
Just before. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So you start working with Tom, which you've been working with Tom for years and stuff. But so you work with Tom, and which, by the way, let's get into a little bit of that. What were you doing on Mule Variations? Just the Pro Tools kind of editing of some of the sounds and the loops and stuff? Because you were starting to get way into that. And Beck had made famous all of a sudden these loopy records with acoustic guitar and stuff. Is that how you get into that?
Well, I mean, definitely I definitely was the Pro Tools guy on that record, but, I also I did, a bunch of the engineering and mixing too. The reason that I was able to sort of be put up, and get an opportunity to do that gig is because of all the analog engineering and mixing skills that I had, plus the Pro Tools stuff. So right. Tom was looking for somebody that could totally make records in the way he had in the past, but then also bring in this new element and kind of incorporate it. And so I kind of got identified as that person and got that opportunity. So I shared the engineering and mixing duties with Oz Fritz. Right. So we pretty equal, in terms of like the engineering and mixing on the record, we're pretty equal. And in addition to that, I did all the Pro Tools stuff.
Wow. Yeah. And that was up at Prairie Sun, correct?
Yes, it was up at Prairie Sun.
Mook up there. Hey, Bubba, Tom's coming in.
Yeah, Mooka. Mooka, right?
Oh, hell yeah. I worked in there millions. Hey, Bubba, come in. Hey, look, I can get you in at midnight for $4,000. I love Mooka. Mooka was a very big supporter. He gave me a lot of, spec deals back then, which he didn't have to do, which is unbelievable, Yeah, he's a good dude. He's a good dude. And Prairie Sun was such a cool vibe up there, and the way that Tom and us, used the place was really amazing, because Tom didn't want to record in the studios. We used the studio control room and the equipment, but we had to run like a 100-foot snake over to like one of the outbuildings to record Tom in, because we didn't really record in the studio proper. So in those chicken coops or what?
Yeah. Like there's a corn crib and just like old farm buildings, like a utility shed. Like the weights room used to be just like a tool shed, basically. Just like wood, like janky wood walls. It's just like it's a farm building and with concrete, with a poured concrete floor, and that was it. There's like no soundproofing or anything. It was just, Tom would bring his instruments. He'd have some pianos delivered, bring all his gear, and we just put microphones and and mic pre's in there and just kind of go for it. It was amazing. That was probably, before that I was a huge Tom Waits fan. And so to have that opportunity, really, really a huge fan of his music, intimately knew his whole discography, and then sort of have that opportunity as a fan to be there and a record maker. I learned so much, just performance, just what it is to place priority on capturing a performance, because that's where all the really magic and energy is. Of course, it's got to sound great, but you got to do it. You got to capture it in the moment. And because Tom, he wouldn't show the songs to the guys he was playing with.
Wow.
And he wouldn't like run the song down and say, "Here, guys, this is how the song goes." And he wouldn't really play it more than 3-4 times at the most. Wow. It's just like, he just start in and the players are good enough and intuitive enough that they just sort of follow him. And he liked that vibe. It's just very in the moment. And so, it taught me, when you mix live sound, you got to be quick, right? But in the studio, working with Tom, it also, you got to be quick, because if you're not ready, you're going to miss it. And you just got to be able to go with the flow and be ready at a moment's notice. And it reinforced me that the performance is the most important thing in recording. Because something can sound great, but if it's not a great performance or it's not a great song, then it doesn't matter how good it sounds. Like if something sounds a little funny, but it's a magical performance, then suddenly that funny sound becomes a cool sound.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Oh, no, it does, because I always say the better the song, the less I even hear of the sounds. A perfect example would be people over the years just talking about no bass on Injustice for All. And I'm just like, I never even heard that, actually. And I play fucking music and I know it inside and out. And it never came on. I was like, where's the bass? I was like, holy shit, Black. And, this is insane,
I know. Dude, I have this project I need to turn you on to called Robot Monster. They're like this, there's this incredible rock duo that I discovered about a year and a half ago. It's just drums and guitar, and it's like heavy, riffy rock. You don't miss the bass. I was able to sonically create something that felt like, big, heavy, powerful rock. And if the performance is there and the energy is there and the songs are there, then, the sound, of course, matters, but it's not the primary consideration. The sound needs to serve the moment and the performance in the song. And then it makes it sound good. Yeah. So right. Yeah, absolutely.
It's interesting because you are really the only person I know, other than some of the musicians here and there over the years, that worked with Tom Waits. And you worked on, my two favorites, of course, are Bone Machine and Mule Variations. But it's funny to think that he doesn't show people the song, and you think about like, what's he building in there? They just set up and he's like, all right, follow me. What's he building in there? And you're just going like, where's this going? And it becomes this beautiful masterpiece. And also something like this crushing ballad of Hold On, you would have to know the dynamics and everything of the tune, because that's really the flavor of that tune,
Absolutely. Typically with Tom, it's like, now a song like Big in Japan, that was recorded with Primus, right? So that was a full band, but Big in Japan started as like a 3-piece, right? Wow. It's kind of like almost the way the Beatles would do stuff. They'd like work the song, and they'd get this core performance and then decorate. So like Hold On was like, I believe it was just a 3-piece. I think it was Stephen Hodges on drums and Larry Taylor on bass and Tom on guitar. And so you get this performance, this magical performance, just like off the floor. Almost, it feels like it's just coming out of thin air. And then you kind of like put the decoration on. You kind of like put stuff on it, add stuff. That Tom loves to do that. He loves to capture a quick performance and then layer on all kinds of stuff and then sort it out. Now, sometimes we would get in trouble because you'd put so much stuff on, you'd kind of lose the plot, and you kind of have to figure out what to strip away to kind of get back to the essence. But so many lessons learned, man. So many lessons learned.
Yeah. And think about Tom at that time. He's this, piano crooner for years. And then he does Bone Machine and Mule Variations. And from there on out, it's totally a new sound for the rest of his career. And it really grabbed me. I always heard Tom Waits in the Hate Street bars, and I understood what it was. And it was cool when you're like, day drinking, thinking you're Bukowski, like, yeah, Tom Waits is on, But by the time he changes, and this is a serious change in style. And it just, boom, he's up for a Grammy, and you worked on this record, and there it is, Mule Variations. I believe it won a Grammy, right?
Yes, it did. Yes. Yeah. And it was actually like, it's crazy, man. I think it was maybe 6 or 8 years ago. They sent me a gold record for it. It was Tom's first gold record. And it just went gold in the last 10 years. Do you believe that?
I can't believe it. I can't believe it.
Because he's a musician's musician. He's like that Mule Variations is in like the Rolling Stones, like top 500 albums of all time. You know, it's like, it's crazy how influential and how incredible he is. And that, you know, that, yeah, it took so long to kind of get to that place. And yes, it's a very dramatic change in sound on Bone Machine. I was so inspired by Bone Machine. I mean, what he did with Chad Blake, you know, just
oh my
unreal.
God. Going Out West, you know, that kind of shit. I mean, when that came on, Going Out West, I was like, this is Tom Waits, you know, it's just like, it was radical. And I also was wondering, because I saw both those tours. I was wondering because then his son starts to come into the picture, and I believe he was like DJing and scratching and stuff. Do you think his son had a influence, like, Dad, check out Beck and all this new stuff and that's going on out there?
I think so. I think so. Casey was the younger son. I'm trying to remember but yes, his children definitely had a lot of influence. And I remember one time, on his, like, introducing him to other music and just the whole idea of more of the looped, like the Beck stuff, like you referenced. And I remember one day we were working on a song called Black Market Baby on Mule Variations. Yeah. And, I don't know, I forget why, but Tom wanted to take a little pause and he's like, come on with me out to, come out to me with the car. I want to listen to a tape in the car. And so he throws in like Public Enemy. Wow. My 98, just like, and we're just crushing it in the car, listening to Public Enemy. And it's just like, I totally get this. It's inspiring, and just the things that he would pull from, he's like kind of like a carnival barker, and he loves language and the oddities of life and the juxtaposition of light and dark. I mean, that's the beauty of the sound of his records, especially when you get to the Machine and on, is that there's a lot of really lo-fi stuff and a lot of really hi-fi stuff kind of mixed together. It's not choosing one or the other. It's this light and shade, this ugly and pretty, that's all kind of mixed together, and they make each other powerful.
It is true. It is true, because it's, at points you're like, this is just stripped down like garage rock. And then other points like Hold On, it's just this brown sound, warm. When I hear Hold On, it's like in my body, it kind of goes in like a Sunday rainy day. And you're just kind of like, wow, this thing is, that record. And then of course his wife writing lyrics and stuff. It's just monumental. And I do believe that Tom Waits has the ultimate career. You can just play all your life to the people that read books and are into architecture and good music and design and everything, like anytime I see him, he looks badass, just Levi head to toe, some rad fucking hat, and an old car. It's like,
Yeah. And I love that he's been able to, to bring that to film too. And the character in the characters that he's played. I mean,
just even recently, Licorice Pizza, I
haven't seen that one yet, but I need to.
Oh, he's in that.
Highly recommended.
Well, it's a good film. If you're, I really enjoy seeing LA 70s, and it really captures that. And there's these really cool kind of vignettes of scenes, and he's in one of the greatest ones, of course, but yeah, you're right. He smashes it all the way back to, Outsiders. What's
the one where it's Roberto Benigni and John Laurie, and they get locked up. He gets locked. He's a radio DJ and gets locked up. What the heck is the name of that movie? Why can't I think of what that is?
Let me look it up right here, because he's done some insane. I heard he was just in the new, like Coen Brothers or whatever, did these small little films.
Oh, it's awesome. It's awesome.
Yeah. I'm looking here.
Down by Law.
Oh, Down by Law. Yeah.
Down by Law. So I've loved that film for so long. And I'd watched it maybe a dozen times before I worked with him. And he and I were in the, speaking of scratching records, I brought a turntable in one day because he had talked about, after that Public Enemy thing on Black Market Baby, he started to ask me like if I knew any like DJs do a little bit of record scratching. And actually, my roommate Mark Reitman, DJ Ill Media, came and scratched a little bit on some Mule Variations tunes. But so one day I brought the turntable in and we're listening to some records in the studio, just him and I. And so there's a scene in Down by Law where he gets put in jail with John Laurie. They get incarcerated together.
Right.
And John and I forget who's Zach and who's Jack. I think Jack was the pimp, John Laurie's character, and Tom was Zach. But so John Laurie's character figures out that Tom's the radio DJ. That's like his gig. And he's, "Oh, do your radio DJ thing." It's like, what's your gig? So, Tom has his part in the movie. Well, Tom and I are listening to records, and he just turns to me and looks at me, does his lines from when they're in the jail cell, when he does the weather and announces a record. And I was just like, I'm getting chills just even thinking about it right now.
Wow.
It was so insane. It's just like to have a moment like that with him was, many times I've watched that movie. It was so cool.
And that came out in 86. So those were still in his head,
Yeah, totally. 10, 12 years later. Yeah.
Yeah. And I don't want to get too stuck on Tom Waits because your career is absolutely incredible. But the good thing is to just talk about the ground zero of really that's kind of when it starts to take off for you. You get the first Grammy going on. Now you and I work together. And like I said, San Francisco starts to turn into a shitstorm. At what point do you move to Nashville? Because all of a sudden I don't know if we had a falling out during the record or whatever. I know there was some tension because it was just getting fucking crazy. And then I just didn't see you ever again for years. And then one day I heard you worked on Kings of Leon and I was like, oh, fucking rad. Good for him. And then I found out you moved to Nashville. So how does this all happen?
Well, I don't remember us having a falling out. I don't think it was a falling out. I don't know what happened.
I think
you were kind of starting to gravitate towards Los Angeles.
Right.
And I had been bouncing around and I met my wife and she's from Nashville. And you remember when you had that show, you had a showcase at the, she came to LA with me. No, I just think life took us in different directions. No, I mean,
that's what I was hoping it was, but you just don't know. You're like, how come I didn't talk to him? And then all of a sudden he was doing Kings of Leon and it was funny.
I think we just kind of moved away. It's just like, I felt my time in San Francisco was done at that point around 98, 99, I was dividing my time between San Francisco and Los Angeles working. And then I met Monet and, we sort of started on our journey and, it kind of just became, it's like a decision time. It's just like, well, I don't want to be in San Francisco anymore. And LA is not really the right move for me to have. I can't afford to have a family here, work here. And I had, not long after meeting her, I had an opportunity to work with this band Switchfoot, and they were signed to a label in Nashville. And so I just happened to go and work there. I had an opportunity to go to Nashville after meeting her. And so I just kind of got integrated into that situation. And so I think about maybe a year or so into our relationship, marriage, it just kind of became decision time. It's like, okay, well, where are we going to make home? And it just made more sense to locate in Nashville. And I'd started making friends and I had opportunities to work there. And so we just decided that that's where we were going to live. Now, I did spend basically the first 6 or 7 years of my time living there, traveling to mostly Los Angeles to work. But,
wow.
That was San Francisco too. But, that's just kind of the way it went. And, I made a life choice to be in Nashville. But in hindsight, it was a really fortunate decision because of the town that Nashville has become, the success that I was to find there. And it was like a better affordable home base. It's like, I own a studio there now, it's like, I couldn't have ever done that. I don't think in LA, I don't know that I would have been able to get over the hump financially, but right. So it's just kind of a life decision.
When you land in Nashville, you start working some records. This is right around what I would call, the the rebirth of rock. You know, a lot of people always keep saying right now is a rebirth of rock, you know, with a few bands out there, but it truly was a rebirth of rock. That's what made me move to LA, because I remember playing the Viper Room and it was totally sold out and people were just going crazy for rock. And at that time you got the Strokes, the Yeah Yeah Yeahs, Kings of Leon, and Jet, Franz Ferdinand. You know, there was some yeah.
Modest Mouse too. Modest Mouse was something that I did that kind of like, that was, you know, just real quickly back to Tom Waits, you know, it's like Modest Mouse, Norah Jones, a bunch of other artists, because I had the opportunity to work with Tom, like that afforded me opportunities with other cool artists because of how much love and respect he gets, and that, you know, my association with it.
That Modest Mouse
that was an amazing thing.
Is by far my favorite Modest Mouse record. I mean, Float On is one of the greatest songs ever wrote. And whenever I hear that song and it comes on, I'm like, this is almost, you know, there's only handfuls of bands that come on and you go, oh, they have their own sound. And Modest Mouse is one of the greatest bands going. And you worked on that, you know? So yeah, Modest Mouse, all this rock was happening. And, you know, and so, you know, I was way into the Strokes big time, and Kings of Leon, and yes. But I remember Kings of Leon, they dropped the EP out, had a song called Wicker Chair. I thought it was one of the greatest songs I had heard in years. I went and saw them at the Viper Room. I was like, this band is fucking fantastic. Now, by the time you work with them, they had done the EP, they do the first record, and then they do the second record. Then you work on the huge record. I don't know. Well, I guess maybe you don't know this, but I worked on the second record too. I engineered the Aha Shake Heartbreak. So I had, you know, spending time in LA, I had been introduced to Ethan Johns. Oh,
and Ethan was making Ray LaMontagne's first record.
Wow.
At Sunset Sound. And I was, you know, I went by and met Ethan, and we kind of started a relationship. So I met Ethan when he was making Ray's record. And then sometime later I was asked to engineer and mix that Aha Shake Heartbreak record.
Wow. And Ethan Johns, I mean, that fucking guy, there's these guys like Dave Cobb right now, you know, where all of a sudden they're, you know, you're like, Ethan Johns was, you know, he was the fucking fifth Kings of Leon, man. And he was doing these incredible lo-fi crushing records. And it was like straight like Silver Lake rock, man. It was just happening. Spaceland was killing. Ethan Johns was out there doing these records. And LA was really fucking exciting at that time. And so that's amazing. I didn't know about that. But were you aware of Kings of Leon before he brings you in?
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. Because Angelo, who helped start the band, it was a friend of mine in Nashville.
Wow.
And so I knew about the Kings of Leon right from the time they got signed. And so I was aware of them. And I thought they were a badass band too.
Oh, yeah,
I mean,
totally.
You know, listen, man, when we made Only by the Night, I would put money on that they were one of the top bands in the world. Yeah. Just in terms of like being able to just play and output and just like how genuinely talented and great they were. So yeah, I was aware of them. And so I came in and worked on that. I came in and worked on the Aha Shake Heartbreak record. I think mostly because, you know, Angelo was there and he had sort of helped create the first record. He helped co-write the first record, kind of helped put the band together. And then Ethan came in as the producer. And so there's a little bit of a power struggle there between the two of them and the band. The band, in getting ready to make the second record, they'd kind of gotten a little flack for an outside, rock bands, it's not cool if someone helps you write your songs, right?
I remember that.
So,
I remember that. They're like, is this a boy band? Was this put together?
Right.
The Southern Strokes, they were trying to label them, all this stuff. Is this a record company product? I remember that.
And yes, and it was unfair because, they really did. I mean, Angelo did help them write and help inspire them and inform them, but it was their music. It wasn't put together for them. But I think they were sensitive to those commentary, and they wrote Aha by themselves, basically, on their own. And so, Angelo and Ethan, a little bit of a power struggle there, really wanted, I think they were both trying to assert themselves as the producers, I mean, Ethan was definitely the lead producer, but, Angelo definitely had a role in it. He's a musical mentor and kind of like kind of a vibe guy, and sort of help with exposing them to music and what was cool, so going into that second record, there's a little bit of a power struggle there. And I think bringing me in to be to handle the technical, the capture, and just to make the record part of it was, I was there to sort of be a neutral party and kind of take the pressure off of Ethan having to do everything, and so I think that's how that worked. And it was a great record. I mean, we made that record in an old television studio in North Hollywood. And it was a space that Ethan had rented. And it was just like a big padded room. It was almost like a SIR rehearsal room, right? And there wasn't anything in there. And we basically built a studio. I rented a console, an old TG console. Ethan bought a 16-track tape machine, and he had a couple of his dad's 2-track machines. And he had some of Glenn's mics, some of his dad's microphones that his dad had given him. And we set up all in one room together, and we had some gobos made. And literally, I recorded the bulk of that Aha Shake Heartbreak record with 7 microphones.
Wow!
As a performance, like three microphones on the drums, 1 microphone on each guitar amp, the bass, and the vocal.
Was that like a Beatles influence thing coming from, was that your idea or was that Ethan's idea?
Well, I think it was kind of a combination. I think that Ethan certainly had set a little bit of a precedent, with them, under Ethan's watch, all the vocals on the first record are live vocals.
Wow.
The bucket on the second record is the only song where the vocal was overdubbed, was resung. It's very much this primarily live off the floor performance. And so me back in around that time, it's just like, I like to record like simple, like straight ahead, in terms of like the technical capture, and it's a rock band. It should be simple, Yeah. So it was kind of a combination. There's a little bit of the aesthetic that he had set up, and it was a little bit of my taste. And yeah, you're using Glenn John's microphones too. It's kind of like, yeah, we should try and make this, happen. And we're mixing on an old TG console. It doesn't have automation. So, when we mixed the record, Ethan and I sat shoulder to shoulder
doing the moves
and mixing it together. Yeah, man. And there's no song on Aha Shake that is more than 12 tracks.
Wow. That's cool.
Maybe there's a keyboard overdub or a piano overdub, some percussion, some background vocals, some claps, but there's no song on that record that was more than 12 tracks. It was crazy. It was amazing. And it never touched the computer. It never touched the computer either. It was all to tape, mixed by hand to tape. The only time I broke the computer out was to make safeties of the multi-track and the mixes.
It's funny about Kings of Leon because so they do that record, and then you're involved with the Monster record. And Kings of Leon are a band that I compare to the Wallflowers and the Black Crowes in a way where they have this breakout giant record. You get all of these kind of fair weather fans come on, The hipster fans disappear, like, yeah, they're fucking big now. And then when they put a record after, which I think the record after the big one is a masterpiece, it is so dark and fucking eerie feeling. And then you have this thing that I hear over and over and over in the world of music. Love the Black Crowes. Whatever happened to them? Wallflowers, dig them. Are they still around? Kings of Leon, they were great. They're not around anymore, right? And you're like, so it fucking makes my skin crawl when people disappear from a band that's still making amazing music because of what they think is hip in their soul, or, what's supposed to be cool at the time. Coachella said, this is who we like this year, or whatever. Yeah. But, Kings of Leon, the amount of fame that they hit was unbelievable. Now, when you're in there doing the big record, what kind of, because of course I watched the documentary and these fucking guys were lunatics. What kind
the documentary is a disappointment, to be honest, but go ask your question. And I'll tell you what, what
kind of tension was going on making that record? And did you have any idea, like, oh my God, we've got a fucking U2 Octung Baby type of fucking record here? What's going on there?
Yeah. So just to rewind just a little bit. So they make the third record because of the times, and I wasn't on that record because I think then Ethan was asserting himself back into, having the hands on everything. And then their relationship, but Ethan and the band's relationship disintegrated. And so they parted ways with him. And then they phoned me and asked me if I would come in and take the lead on the production and the engineering and mixing. But they were, there was a lot of tension on Only by the Night. There was a lot of tension, their fame in Europe and the UK was huge, through the roof. They couldn't get arrested in the United States, right? And they were frustrated. They were frustrated by that, and they were like, "We want, it's just like, we want to have a big record. It's like blah blah blah." And they looked to me to be able to sort of like help them do that. And they'd been fighting. Caleb wrote a bunch of the songs on that record in a sling on pain meds because he and Nathan got into a fight and dislocated, which arm was it? I think it was his left, pulled his shoulder out of his socket, and it's just like, so he's like recuperating on pain meds and he wasn't supposed to be playing guitar, but he's in this sling and he's kind of playing guitar like this. And that's how some of those riffs kind of came to be because of, just where he was at physically and mentally. But yeah, there was a lot of tension. They were, the guys were going, they're getting famous. They're going in like different directions. Jared, who's the youngest brother, the bass player in the band, he joined the band when he was 14 years old.
I know.
So it's just like, yeah, they've become rock stars, and life is, life is fast and huge. And there was a lot of tension, but there was also this really big opportunity. I felt like the songs that Caleb had written were, of that caliber that you mentioned. And the thing to me was that he's a great singer, but like on the first three records, you couldn't understand a bunch of the lyrics.
Yeah, it's kind of mumbling. It's like, I'm going to change your mind, that I'm going to go home down time,
Absolutely. And I was like, Caleb, we got to show the world that you can really sing. Like, and these your lyrics are poetry. I mean, it's just like, this is amazing. We need to. So for me, one of the big goals was to make sure that I put his voice and the song craft very forward, So that's like the first time. So Only by the Night is their fourth record. And it's the first time where, other than The Bucket, and maybe one or two other songs over the first three records, that he was he would sing some vocal takes. So once we get the song recorded, that day or the very next day, he'd go in the vocal booth and he'd give me 2, 3, 4 amazing vocal takes, and I'd put something together, and it'd go really fast, but it was able to really put a lot more care and focus on like his singing talent. I mean, there was a lot of tension, that people would get overserved during the day, a little bit too much. And everybody's kind of like, one guy's like firing up the volcano vaping, and another guy's like, power drinking vodka. And then Jared only was drinking coffee, but he was drinking it by the pot full. So it was just like, you got these guys, these incredibly powerful guys that kind of going in different directions. They're super competitive because they're brothers,
right?
And a cousin. So what's beautiful about that relationship is there's so much commonality, and they don't need to really talk about stuff. It just kind of happens because they all feel it together, but they're competitive. So they stay out of each other's way, like musically, but then give each other space to kind of show off a little bit. And it just kind of creates this magic. And so we'd literally, man, spend half the day jackassing around, outside playing wall ball or drinking or throwing darts or whatever it is we're doing. And that's like, hey, can we go in and record the song? We go and bang the song out. And then, it's like we'd start about 10 or 11 in the morning, and usually somebody was overserved, or we'd run out of energy by like 6 o'clock.
Wow.
Every day. And it was just like, bang, it was super intense. It was like a rock and roll circus, man. Yeah. And it was really, really exciting. And, Caleb didn't want to do Sex on Fire.
Whoa.
He didn't want to, we had to like talk him, all of us had to talk him into it. And I mean, there was a lot of fighting on Sex on Fire. Caleb didn't want to do the song. Like, he didn't want to have that chorus vocal, he didn't want it to be revealed in like the new way I was trying to present his vocals. And he was trying to get me to take his voice out of the first chorus. I'm like, no way, man, there's no way. And there's a drum beat on there. So the pattern that Nathan plays on the song is much more of an open pattern than you hear on the finished record, because Matthew had this Casio keyboard that he's like, I think we should add this beat to it. Nathan got really angry about it. And Matt only played the part. I was like, Matt, let's just record it. I think it's really cool. Let's record it. So he played it about 3/4 of the way through the song. And then the shit hit the fan, and we had to stop. So then I had to spend, this is where my Pro Tools skills come in, because we're not recording any of this. None of that record is recorded to a click. It's just performed. Right. And so I had to, kind of time correct and make a part out of the beat that Matt was playing.
Flying it in on the front part.
Flying it in and fixing it, wow. Yeah. And then I had to figure out how the back half of the song went. So, we got there's all these battles, right? There's these battles about, no, I don't want the vocal in the first chorus.
That's got to be like an insecurity, right? Because when you're a singer, he's obviously doing a character before, where it's like, you're not, so, everybody, once you solo up your vocal and stuff, you're like, oh God, because it's a big fucking, sex on fire. It's like this. It's this big thing. And before, he probably would have just been like, your son's on fire, like just a mumbling thing. So when you're hearing that, it's like, I don't know, man. I don't want to be out there,
That's totally 100% it. 100%. And then, so there was that battle. I would say that if there's one thing that I could, sort of, take a little credit for is that I decided to record Use Somebody as the very first song, as the very first song in the studio, because I'd made the second record with them, and I just observed, like, once you kind of got the process going, you start recording and you start to get comfortable, and everybody's nerves kind of chill out. Then they start thinking about like what they're doing more in a more critical way. And I was like, Use Somebody, I was like, this song is really special. And it's also like nothing they've ever done before. So it's just like, I want to record this first to get it out of the way and not have it sort of, overanalyzed or overthought down the road. Like, after we'd done some quirky, cool song, and like, hey, can't we kind of mess this song up that way? And I wanted to avoid that. No one knew, like, I knew it was a great song, and I knew we made a great record out of it.
Right.
I would be foolish to say that had any inkling that it would do what it did at the level that it did. I go into every record thinking, like, just make the best possible record you can of songs, and it will have the life it's meant to. you know, so you don't think about that. Don't try to place it somewhere. Don't try to project it in the future. Don't say like, we're going to record a hit. I hate when people show up to the studio, you know, it's just like, I mean, I can brag on myself a little bit. I have 40 Grammy nominations. You know, it's like I have 3 Grammys, a bunch of wins. You know, you don't always get, as a producer engineer, you don't always get a Grammy for a win. But it's just like, I hate when people show up in the studio and it's like, hey, we're here with Jacquire. We're going to win a Grammy. It's like, you know,
gross.
now we're not.
Gross.
Now we're not.
Gross.
And how dare you sort of like filth up our, you know, what we're trying to do here. Of course it matters. And I would like to win a Grammy with you. And wouldn't that be nice? But like, if that's what we're thinking about, then we're missing the point.
Oh, that's just gross. You know, I mean, it's just like,
sorry, I'm jumping around a lot. Things are coming to me on Use Somebody, right? Matthew came up with that, the vocal. I can't think of the melody right now, but you could probably sing it. You might, you know, the opening vocal melody that's sung in the intro, the oh, whatever that is. Matthew came up with that. And so then we layered it up and kind of revisit it through the song. It was like a great idea to sort of like put through the arrangement and develop. And then, but the guys were worried about getting on stage and having to play that song and having to sing straight away without having heard music before. They were like, they were nervous that they would not sound good just coming in with vocal straight at the top of the song, right? And so they actually showed up to mastering to continue to try to get me to take those background vocals out of the intro of the song, because they knew from working with me in the past that I had printed an instrumental mix and that we would also be mastering the instrumentals at mastering, and that we could use the instrumental for the intro and then cut to the full mix for the rest of it. And we had a fight. We had basically an argument, not a fight. We didn't actually exchange fists, but we had an argument at mastering, and they left angry at me because I was like, no, we are not taking those background vocals. And I was like, that's the fucking hook of this. Like, that's the thing that makes this thing pop in the beginning. There's no way.
Right.
You know, so there's tons of stories like that. I mean, there was a lot of beautiful tension. There was there was a lot of beautiful tension. I loved working with those guys. Unfortunately, my relationship during Come Around Sundown.
That's the record hit. After?
Yeah.
Now, what happened there?
They had been touring a ton, and they'd been getting on each other's nerves. They were super tired. Only by the Night was still all over the radio. They were, there's like it's huge. They needed some time to go away and for things to kind of like come down a little bit, for them to need a little space and come down. I felt like we were in the studio too soon. Right. And songs weren't fully finished. They were arguing and fighting a lot, and they're like, why the fuck are we here? But they wanted to be there. It was just craziness. And so about 2.5 weeks into it, I was like, guys, I don't think we should be doing this right now. Two brothers could be having an argument about something we're doing on the song, right? Like, difference of opinion. If you would sort of side with someone, if you would side, like, okay, so like Nathan wanted the drum part to be this way and Caleb wasn't liking it, and they were having an argument about it, right? And if I were to say, hey guys, I think Nathan has a point. I kind of think we should go with what he's talking about. Suddenly Nathan would get mad at me. Because I was against his brother. Yeah, because I was against his brother. Right. So it's just like no way to win sometimes. So I said, well, I don't think we should be here, guys. And they got mad at me. They were already frustrated with me. They were kind of blaming me in a way for the success of Only by the Night, because some of the hipsters went away. Yep. The soccer moms were showing up. They're playing arenas, of course, and they didn't feel as cool. I didn't try to sell you out. I just wanted to make a big badass record with you. It's like we got seven Grammy nominations for that album. Yeah.
Well, I also think that what they don't realize is if that record didn't happen, they'd be gone, because it had run its course, and maybe not gone, but not on the label that they were on. And also, you could have made that record And what I always tell people, you don't even understand the ingredients of what a hit record takes. You know how many hit records are out there that no one heard because they didn't promote it? You know, I mean, I'm talking about a masterpiece record, and you go, how did that record not sell? So it wasn't just you, it was timing, lightning in a bottle. It was the songwriting. It was the record company. It was the landscape of where music was at the time. And everybody was just like, here it is, you know?
Oh, absolutely. Don't make no mistake. I'm not trying to take undue credit at all. No.
Yeah.
I mean, you're absolutely right. I mean, I was very fortunate to play the role that I had. And I made a difference in my job.
Totally.
You know, I made a difference in my job, but yes, you're absolutely right. All those other things needed to go right, you know, and, you know, the label picking Sex on Fire as a first single was a genius move. It was bold, you know.
Your genius move, though, of hearing great songs and realizing how to make them better. And I noticed that about you when I was working with you, because I was pretty confident in what I was doing. I knew what I was trying to get to. I loved Lucinda Williams' Car Wheels on a Gravel Road and Wilco and all that. So I knew what I was trying to get, but you do get lost when you're in there. And then if you have a guy that understands what you're trying to get to, and you might, butt heads with them, but you're like, yeah, this guy knows, because he's outside of, he's not in my head. He's outside of that and can go like, nah, this drums are too busy here. And then you're just like, okay, let's hear it that way. And the instinct of you as an artist is going to be like, you don't know, you're wrong, but later you go like, that does sound pretty good. And you know what I do notice years later when I hear my record, I go, I couldn't even tell you what I was frustrated with on this record back then, all these years later, like if there was something in there, like, the vocal's a little tweaky, or it's a little pushed or something. You listen to it 20 years later, you're like, this thing's great. You know what I mean?
Music's funny. Like art is funny that way. It's like, and for me to, in today's world, I have gotten out of the mode where I just like hunker down and just see a project through with blinders on beginning to end, because, we're pulled in so many different directions. Everybody's working habits and attention span is so different. It's nice to just do things in blocks, and you get a little bit of that separation and perspective. And you start to, you show up and listen to it. And it's like, it's either going to sound good or bad. And you're going to sort of forget about what was bothering you 2 weeks ago for the most part.
Absolutely. So basically you have a falling out, and do they fire you or you leave and then they finish the record without you?
No, I finished it. No, I saw it come around sundown out, finished out, but I was not invited back.
I love that record.
I think there's some amazing stuff on it.
Well, what's funny is to hear the inside from you now is, like I said, it definitely felt like a band that was at a funeral of their career, meaning the funeral of the coolness in their eyes, in their eyes. But to me, I never abandoned this band, even to their newest record recently. I've always dove in to see what they were doing and championed them and promoted them in any way I could. But I really, now that you told me that, I was like, God damn, I am on the money on the feeling of that record. Because when I put it on, I go, this record, there's something about it that makes me feel shitty. And like in a weird way of like, man, this is dark. It's coming out of the speakers, which I enjoy. I love music that makes me feel different ways. I put on such and such, I feel fired up, like, yeah. I put on this, I'm like, man, this is dark as shit. Fuck, it's like a dark movie, man. It's like The Shining, on audio.
I mean, brilliant film, but great piece of art. But there's definitely a darkness to it. And I mean, I really haven't, my communication, they stopped sort of communicating with me over a period of time after that, and I was not asked back after that. So it ran its course. Its course. I think that they're still writing and performing great music. for me personally, I don't resonate with the way it's being presented anymore. I think something is a little bit lost in translation, but I also have a biased opinion. It's like I have, I know what I feel of them as a band because I've been in the room with them, and I don't hear it so much in more recent stuff. But listen, I have so much love and respect for those guys. Even, it's like, yeah, we had our differences, that we don't work together anymore. But I still think that they, one of the most incredible rock bands, ever, really.
Yeah.
So they're definitely up there. I mean, there's a lot of incredible rock bands ever, but they're up there. I think they're special, and no hard feelings, and I love the opportunity I had to work with them.
Well, that era is some of the greatest rock ever made. The Strokes just blew my mind. Leather Jackets were back. And I'm not like some tumbleweed, like, yeah, man. But when it came on, I was like, whoa, fuck. We've got New York meets some punk rock with some Beatles kind of hooky. And that's what, like, the Yeah, Yeah, Yeahs and the Strokes and Kings of Leon were doing. It was just like,
what happened to the Yeah, Yeahs?
Well, they did. I saw them about 2 years ago. They came out and played a couple weeks. And I mean, Karen O, and I've gone to the mat on this many times. There's 5 singers in my life that just really blow my mind. Bon Scott, of course, being one of the greatest. Henry Rollins. I'm talking about people that when they perform, you're like, what the fuck is going on? Zach from Rage, Karen O, and these are people that are so next level that you just don't even know what you're seeing. Nick Cave, Tom Waits, these type of people. It's not just who's the greatest vocalist. It's like, who gives a fuck? Yeah. It's who embodies all things art, music, rock and roll. And Karen O is one of those. So she had gotten married, had some kids, they took time off. And I think they were going to come back because they had the anniversary of the big record with Maps. And that's when I went to see him at the Fonda, like a celebration of that. And I think they were going to come back, and then COVID hit. So I'm sure we'll see them again. But that era of music, and a lot of it has to do with like Coachella, where all these bands could play, and you could see bands, like 50 bands, and, anything from Alabama Shakes to the Yeah, Yeah, Yeahs to, all different types of stuff in the tent. Like, what was that band from Australia? Starts with a W. Forget his name. Fuck. Wolf Mother.
W.
Yeah.
Wolf Mother. Oh yeah. Where did that go?
That guy disintegrated the band on that record and then put a different one together. Still Wolf Mother, but the players, and then the kind of chemistry went away. But there was just these bands that were fucking crushing, out of nowhere. You're just like, oh, God damn. And LA was so rock right then for like 5 years. So it was great to move here and ingest some of that last stuff,
Absolutely, man. Gosh, it's like get me fired up about that stuff. I can't wait to play you Robot Monster. I really want to see how it hits you, what you think. Yeah. I'm excited about that.
Let me ask you this. I never really knew because I think when I first met you, you were maybe into DJing or something, but were you ever a musician, and what got you into producing? Like, who were your guys? Was it Rick Rubin that was killing it for all those years? What got you into that? Because I always ask people that are musicians, who were your guys? They're like Kiss, Beatles, or Zeppelin, but what got you rolling into this?
Yeah. Well, I mean, when I was a small kid, I wanted to be a radio DJ. It's like, and because my mom had a great record collection, so I would spend time, putting records on and making DJ shows on a cassette, like one of those a cassette recorder, And then I had time. Like in high school, I played guitar. I wanted to be a drummer, but like I had guitar and bass, and always really interested in music and a fan of music, a lover of music. But, I was never really very serious about my musicianship. And I can play a little bit of this, a little bit of that. And then I had some friends, later in high school that were in bands, and kind of got around some of like their 4-track and that kind of stuff. And I was just always more interested in the capture and the mystery of the record, like like listening to Jimi Hendrix records as a young teenager. I began to understand that the studio and the recording process and the Beatles and Led Zeppelin, like there is a process, there is a thing that happens that takes a performance and makes it into a record. And so I started to go down the path of trying to understand that. And of course, like Rick Rubin was an influence on me, mostly because I was a teenager, like in my late teens, when like Aerosmith, Run DMC's on MTV, and the Beastie Boys come out, and I'm starting to listen to Public Enemy stuff that he, some things that he didn't have anything to do with, but it's just like starting to see the influence of, like, because my love for hip hop and rock and the Beastie Boys and all these things, Rage Against the Machine, all these things, is like, so some of his influence in terms of like putting music together and taste. I decided, I think I was about 20 years old, and I saw an ad in the back of Rolling Stone magazine for this school called the Recording Workshop. And I was like, wow, you can actually go to a school and learn how to be an engineer, learn how to make records. So I worked for like a year and a half as a furniture mover, save money to go put myself through that program. And I just kind of dove in head first, because just always a tinkerer with equipment, and I just wanted to capture stuff. I kind of wanted to curate music. I think it sort of stemmed from my desire to sort of be a DJ and my love of music and the diversity of music. And I just decided when I was about 20 years old that I wanted to make the studio my instrument, and I just kind of went from there. I got really into, because of hip hop and the Beastie Boys, I got really into samplers, and kind of, before there was Pro Tools, I was like, I had samplers and sequencers, and I would, I put music together, sample stuff and keyboards and just different guitar, just whatever, and just kind of cobble stuff together. I don't know that I made anything that was really groundbreaking, but I was learning and discovering, and I just kind of went down that path. Like that's kind of just how I got into it. It was just sort of like, it felt like the mystery of record making was my calling.
It's funny because you think about how hip hop, how much influence it had on everything, landscape, fashion, rock and roll, and Pulse Boutique, especially, having just many samples, and the Dust Brothers and them pulling all of that kind of stuff out. Really, I think, was also a big influence of home recording people, of like, I get to sit here at home and grab samples and then, drop this in here, and I could be making stuff. And there were tons of home recording people just doing, I remember hearing demos like 20 years ago of bands and being like, like a band like T-Ride. You're like, who the fuck made this? Where it sounded like full on 50 vocals, Queen, like, and you're like, what the fuck? And they're like, yeah, Eric Valentine's like, yeah, I made that in this back room over here. You're like, how? So there was some wizardry going on, man, that just, I think now we're definitely back more into kind of the organic feeling of, like, say Dave Cobb, Chris Stapleton type of a big organic thing, which is great. Marcus King, all these guys that are making these beautiful records. But there was a time where it was just like, whoa, people are taking recording to the next fucking level, man.
Yeah. And that time was not long after I sort of, really had gotten established and was really, really into it. I had an Atari 8-track analog machine and a sequencer and a computer, kind of chasing behind it and kind of figuring out how to do all that stuff. Yeah, absolutely. And I just kind of followed that path ever since.
What do you got in your studio now? And where is the studio, and what's the name of it? Do you have any Neve consoles or sidecars, or are you running tape? What's going on?
No, I sold. Well, I have a console. It's a Quad 8 console. It's a custom console. I have two. Well, I bought a big console that I turned into sidecars.
Right.
So, long story short, it's like I've got a sidecar in there. I sold my last tape machine a couple years ago. I made a transition from Pro Tools. I use Luna now,
What is it,
which is the
Luna?
universe. Yeah, Luna. It's the universe. So Universal Audio, that plug-in company, the hardware company.
Yep.
They introduced a DAW almost 2 years ago. I've been helping them work on it for a number of years. So I've switched over to that platform, and I've got all kinds of analog gear and mics. The studio, it's called the LBT, and it's in Franklin, Tennessee. It's in
Franklin. I know it.
Old house. It's in an old house. It's not. I don't live there. It's my studio house. It's beautiful. Redid it, and it's a comfortable recording space. I guess the majority of the things I've done in the last 5 years have been done there. It's just a beautiful little. It's primarily, it's full of instruments. But I don't do the tape thing anymore because it's not necessary. Right. Luna sounds great. I have in the past handful of years, I have gone back to my older ways of recording without a click. I had a long stretch in there where artists like James Bay and Kaleo and a bunch of others where I was using a bunch of programming and doing a bunch of programming and pre-production. And there's this more complicated process in terms of the way I was approaching production. But I have kind of gone back almost to my roots where it's, most things I record are without a click track, and it's their performances that we fix up and kind of embellish on.
Yeah.
And so it's it's a nice comfortable space for that. I would love to show it to you sometime if you ever visit me.
Oh, I'll definitely come out there for sure when I come out to Nashville. What kind of nightmare is it these days when you're dealing with the group and here comes the fucking record company with this $2 budget? Has it just blown your mind about what they try to get for no money now?
Absolutely. And I only work with the majors and minority. I have mostly focused on independent artists. I do occasionally, the thing is, it's like, I don't necessarily think you need a bunch of money to make a record. There's certain expectations and a process that comes with working for a major label. And so, and they have the money, so you just need to charge them more. And so it's it's not equitable for them to come to me with a small budget and expect a big budget result. Most major labels are also run by accountants, not creative A&R people. There are exceptions, don't get me wrong, there's a lot of great people out there, but talking about in the majority, it's just not really a relationship or an environment that I want to put myself in very often. It really has to be the right situation, and they have to be able to come up with, it doesn't need to be an exorbitant amount of money, but it needs to be the right amount of money to do the job the way it needs to be done to get the result that they would expect. Right. And it takes more time because there's more voices involved, and there's more of a process, and there's too much looking under the hood. But but I have mostly focused on doing things that are more independent, and especially in the last 2-3 years, I only agree to do projects that I really want to do creatively. So it's it's not a business decision first for me. It's a creative decision. And
right.
It's like when I do an independent record and the budget's small, well, I have I have more ownership or attachments to it. Because it's basically like, hey, if we're going to make a record, I only have much money, and you really can't pay me very much. It's like, I want to do it if you'll make me your partner, and we'll both get paid at the same time. If there's a great result, well, I'm in for that. It's like, why not? I want to do something that I feel fulfilled by. A couple of years ago, one of the independent projects that I chose to do is this band Oliver Hazard. They're this little folky trio from Waterville, Ohio. I was at a charity event, and they were kind of like the house band for for a little dinner party kind of atmosphere. And I walk in and they're playing. I'm like, fuck, these guys are really good, And so I talked to them afterwards, and they didn't have any idea who I was, and I didn't care. But like, it's like, hey, if you guys are down in Nashville, it's like, I'd love for you to come by my studio and just kind of talk. It's like, I'd really like your music if you maybe be interested in talking to me about it. And so we did that. And, this is when COVID started. And, since that time, I was kind of like mentoring them, and I helped them get a publishing deal. And I was like, guys, I've been kind of managing you now for 6 months, and because our plan was that we were going to make a record and I would shop them to my manager friends because they needed a good manager. But COVID happened, and it was like, I'm not going to be able to get you to sign. I'm not going to be able to get anybody to sign a baby development band. Right. So I was just helping them. And I was like, I think what we should do is a pub deal. And so I started working on that, and I was like, I think this is going to happen, guys. What do you think about me being your manager? If I find a partner to be the day-to-day manager, what do you think about it, me being your manager? And they're like, yeah, let's give it a try. Well, just last week, my partner Rich and I, we hired our first assistant. We have 4 artists on our roster. Oliver Hazard is now signed to Network Records. Wow. Robot Monster. I got independent. I have a business. Do you know who Jocko Willink is?
No.
He's a Navy SEAL commander. He's got a huge. You should check him out. Like, he and Joe Rogan are pals. He's got a great platform. Jocko showed interest. He's partnered with us to help us put Robot Monster out independently. Tish Mom is an artist we have. She's kind of a pop artist. Signed her Secret Road. And then Michael MacArthur is sort of, he's like an Americana. You'd like Michael's music. Americana artist that I got a boutique record deal with Transoceanic. So it's like, I made records with Oliver Hazard, Robot Monster, and Michael MacArthur. So I'm picking to do projects that I'm creatively inspired by, with great people. And now that has turned into that I have a management company, and I'm helping them with their careers. Now we have. That's great. Rich and I were excited. Today we sent out an email, and our company now has 5 email addresses associated with it. We're so excited. We're winning. We're going to put out over 25 songs this year with our artists.
That's great.
So it's like I decided to follow my passion for people and creativity. And I got away from chasing the music business, finally kind of just decided, like, I've had it. I was like, I don't want to do it this way. I want to keep making records, and I want to be in the music, but I don't want to do it this way. The success of Kings of Leon, Norah Jones, all those things, you get to it's like you get to a place where you find success. Success is hard because it convolutes things, it changes things. Suddenly you've got, you make a Kings of Leon record, Only by the Night. Suddenly you've got major labels coming to you, wanting you to make their little band the next Kings of Leon.
Of course. And they got all these, I always said, like, oh God, I want to work with the Rick Rubin, but then you could work with Rick Rubin, and the problem is your ears are still hearing you. You know what I mean? So they're like, we worked with Rubin, and I don't sound like fucking the Dixie Chicks, or whatever the big record was. You think the guy's gonna come in and they just wave this wand, and all of a sudden you're fucking Wilco, and it's still you. You're still hearing your ears. It's hilarious. I remember from doing 4-track or 8-track demos, and then doing 21-track in a real studio. Yeah, it sounded a little better, but it wasn't like what you thought it was going to be. I thought it was just going to be like Van Halen 1, like sonically and everything, it's what you're hearing. It's you, and these labels, they think, we'll just get Jacquire, and he'll do the Sex on Fire magic there, and we'll have a triple platinum record too, which is so delusional and crazy, especially when they hand you the songs from the band. You're like, well, this ain't going to happen. I didn't write the songs.
Right. Yeah. It's, and so the pressure, the pressure and the context, and it's just like, everybody walks to the room, and it's like, oh, well, you made Sex on Fire. It's like, this is going to be easy. It's like, no, it's not. You got to show up and be amazing. It's just like, because to your point, it's still you, You know, just because did something with someone else doesn't mean that you get that whole experience. You know, it's just like, I played a part in that, you know, it's like I helped them do that.
Yeah.
So, you know, it's just like, there for a while, I got lost. I lost my way a little bit, you know, it's like, and I'd be making records. I'm like, why the fuck am I doing this? It's just like, why, you know, it's just like, I didn't choose to do this for the right reason. It's like, not that the people were bad or the music was terrible. It's just, why have I put myself in a position? Why have I agreed to be in a position where there's so much expectation and it's not really going to pan out that way?
Yeah.
You know, it's just like, if I'm going to spend my time with people creating art, because that's what the intention is, it's like, I want to enjoy it. I need to pick it for a different reason, you know, and clear away all this stuff. And honestly, when I started to really, you know, dig into making those changes for myself, you know, it's like, yeah, maybe, no, am I up knocking down my door? No, you know, it's like, I'm 55 years old, you know, Kings Leon was, you know, that was a little while ago now, you know, there's other things happening. I haven't tried to assert myself, you know, in like the industry way. Right. I'm doing it over here on the side. I'm hoping that like the artists that I'm working with now that I believe in and have enjoyed making the art, one of them or all of them are going to bubble up and have their thing. Then maybe somebody will come to me because of the Michael MacArthur Robuster record, you know, whatever, you know, it's just like, but at least it goes back to the conversation we were having earlier about like, don't spoil the moment by saying I win a Grammy now. That's not the point. Let's make a great record. Let's make a great record. And then if we do that, we can consider what can happen next, because it's all hard work. I mean, you know this, it's like the hard work is not making, I mean, it's hard work writing a record, recording a record and making it great. But that's the fun part.
That's the best part, man.
That's the best part.
Yeah.
The real hard work is after, you know, like bringing it to the world, supporting it, going out on tour, you know, just that whole thing. It's just like, that's a real effort. So yeah, I mean, I don't know why I got off on this tangent, but I want to know a little bit about like, when did you decide to do what you're doing? I'm so proud of you, man. Like, you know, it's just like, I don't know how long we've been in touch, but it's like, I kind of been brushing up on you. And it's like, well, fuck, you're living your dream too. Like, I want to hear a little bit about that.
Yeah. It's pretty weird because talking to you really takes me back to the last era of me playing music. And it was the most, I would say, serious and the most proud I was era of playing music, because, you know, when you start playing music at 15, 16 years old, you're playing keg parties and, you know, you got a band together and, you know, you're just doing it. And then at some point when you're about 25 or 26, 27, people just go away. You know, they get that, you know, manager job at Kinko's and, you know, they're just gone. And it was funny to think about at around 27, 28. I don't know how old I was. Yeah, around 27, 28. I was like, you know, I fell in love with alt country and Wilco and, you know, like I said, Lucinda Williams and that whole thing. And, you know, Chris Isaac and Chuck Prophet, all these great music going on in San Francisco. And I decided I wanted to learn guitar, and I really went for it hardcore, made records and moved to LA and toured and nonstop. And then there was just after 25 years, I was like, you know what? It's kind of over. The illegal downloading has disintegrated it. And I had done it for 25 years. Fucking great. And so, you know, selling Harleys leads to getting into some movies, to try and stand-up comedy. And I always wanted to do comedy as a kid. But when I was a kid, there was, you know, kids didn't do comedy when I was in San Francisco, you know, like you played rock. Yeah. You know, there wasn't like a 6-year-old, like I'm doing open mics and stuff. And there wasn't YouTube or anything like that to So I don't know. I just, I said, fuck it, man. I've always wanted to try it. I'm going to go try it. And it bit me. And I'd never stopped. And that was 12 and a half years ago. And it was the greatest time of my life, way more than music. Other than making that record with you, which I thought was one of the greatest times of my life, making this record that I wrote from the ground up, learning an instrument in a year, that is the equal of comedy. But comedy to me really is where I should have been my whole life, but just didn't know how to get there. And I loved comedy as much as rock. So either way is great. And rock has provided me with incredible history for this podcast of 11 years now. So it all happens in some different way. People have their own maps in life, and it's full circle for me because I grew up on, Saturday Night Live and Richard Pryor and Carlin. And I always loved comedy, man. I would see Seinfeld all the time. And I saw all the greats, Kinnison, all them. I used to hang out at the Comedy Store when I was younger.
Oh, man.
And all my dreams have come true from comedy. My music dreams. I played the LA Forum with Burr. I did Red Rocks with Burr. I opened for Metallica a couple weeks ago.
I saw that. Congratulations. Yeah, I saw that.
I was in Guitar Player magazine. They were like, this guy's funny as shit and he can do Bon Scott. So all this stuff happened. And it was mostly because I stayed in the world of arts, and I don't know how to get out. If I did, I wouldn't be it. You know what I mean? It's like the old Godfather. I was out and they dragged me back in, whatever that dumb, cheesy line is, but it's in my fucking blood and I don't know what it is. And I'm glad I don't, because I'd probably turn it off and just go live out in fucking Portland, Oregon or something, but I love it. I'm happier than ever. It's the hardest thing I've ever done. Hands down. There's nothing fucking harder.
It should be if it's the greatest reward, it should be hard.
Yeah. So, here I am and here you are. And it's just great to be able to talk to you. And we're both in the world of entertainment still in art,
Absolutely, man. And, it's just like, I was a little surprised to learn of like how strong your career has become in comedy. But at the same time, knowing you and the time that we spent together, you're a funny motherfucker. And I've always known that. So it's like, and you have a big personality. You're comfortable with everybody. So it's just like, well, it totally makes sense, totally makes sense. So I'm glad that you found it. And yeah, we are like our roadmap for life. We, it can be a very circuitous journey, but it's like all the things that you mentioned, the same thing, all the things you collect along the way. It's just like, you bring that to where you are, it's just like, you have all this connection. Of course you can do comedy, and open for Metallica. Right. It's just like, because I know how badass you can sing and you can do the Bon Scott thing. And it's just like, yeah, all of it makes sense. I'm just thrilled for you. I feel it's weird, man. It's like, you think about like when we were hanging out together, like a little more than 20 years ago, it's right. Like in my early 30s, I would have never like, what are you going to be doing or feeling like when you're 55? I'd be like, fuck, I don't know. It's just like, I'm alive, I don't know. But like, I feel so damn excited about everything I'm doing, the opportunities. I feel so alive. It's just like the world is different that, at this age than it was in the past. There's so much opportunity, there's so much vitality, and I love it. I'm glad we're both still in the arts.
I think it's mostly I'm glad that I'm in the arts to shut down this mentality, especially with just the human nature of people are like, well, 55, you're not supposed to be, going for your dream. You're supposed to be settled into a bad marriage and heavy debt ratio, and also the ageism of the entertainment business. It's like, you guys don't make the rules, man. It's Tom Waits, I don't know how old he is, maybe 65, 70 or something.
He's 71, I think.
Yeah, and it's like there's some kind of mentality to where they think, okay, well, those guys, we grew old with them. Springsteen's, the Tom Waits and everything. Well, they're old, and it's like, yeah, but if a guy came around that had the talent and the insanity and the amazingness of Tom Waits, and he happened to be 71, you wouldn't even look at him. You know what I mean? It's like, so fuck all that. I always let people, people are like, you shouldn't talk about your age. I'm like, nah, because
I'm proud of how old I am.
Oh, hell yeah. I'm like, hey, I started at 44 years old doing comedy. I just say that. So people go like, fuck it, I'm going to try some shit, especially with COVID, man. That was the biggest wake up call. Are you laying in your house regretting your decisions? Well, fucking reset yourself and get out there now and go for it.
Yeah. I mean, and there's so much opportunity. I mean, just the way, it's like, there's just so much opportunity in the world, the way we're connected. I mean, it's as good as it is bad, really, because you can get lost in it. There's a lot of distraction, but at the same time, if there's possible connection and opportunity, so it's just like, if you prioritize your time and you do things that are meaningful, you can reach a lot of people, meaningful to you, you can reach a lot of people and share it and have that connection. I mean, you're in LA and I'm in the Bahamas, and look this conversation we're having. This is like a little renaissance for us. I hope this is the beginning of you and I staying in touch and doing whatever it is we do together the next time we meet.
I believe that. I believe that 100%. I can't wait.
I want to come see one of your gigs.
Yeah, hopefully. I do Nashville a couple times a year, so hopefully you're in town. Zanies, or if I do like a theater with Burr or something, I was there for the Nashville Comedy Fest, did the Ryman a couple nights in a row. That was great. And so, yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing your studio. And, I was dying to have you on for a couple of years now. And I'm so glad I got to have you on, because it was such a big part of my life making that solo record. And it was the last record I made,
Well, you should be proud of that record. I know I had a wonderful time making it, and I have wonderful memories of it. I remember how and honest and, great it was, just remembering that session down at, Gold, whatever it was, Gold Star.
Yeah.
Whatever it was. Yeah. That was who played the drums? What was his name?
Ronnie Crawford.
Ronnie was such and the drums. So good. Have you stayed in touch with him?
Absolutely. Yeah. He, I did that Bon Scott tribute. He played the one when I turned 50, and he hasn't played them since, but we ran into each other at the Rolling Stones in San Diego, like a fluke. And we text each other like once a couple of months or so on Instagram. And yeah, his Instagram is Ron Drum. And I will say this right now, I played with a lot of great drummers, a lot of them. And I think that he is one of the greatest drummers of all time, because he could do the Keith Moon and the John Bonham all in one, which is wild,
You're absolutely right. I remember I remember how great he sang those sessions, and I remember how great he played. That was the chemistry. That was the impression. That was what really stuck with me. It's just the way he could just, perform and play the drums was so special. I'm going to look him up and see if he remembers me.
Oh yeah, he will remember you for sure. Please look him up in case you ever need a drummer for a session, because he's still playing,
Where's he living?
I think he lives in Santa Cruz or San Jose or something. But it's interesting because he was Lisa Loeb's drummer. So when he was recommended to me, I was like, oh, I mean, I'm not knocking Lisa Loeb, but we were playing,
kind of style of music.
Yeah, right. So I had no idea. And then he just came in, and one of the biggest elements of Ronnie Crawford is his vibe. He just came in. He's like, this song is great, man. Oh, I love it. Oh, I could do this over here. And and you're just going like, oh, this guy's fucking on. And then, you were killing it on the fucking board. And and the vibe and the late night burritos and everything. And I was obsessed with vintage equipment, like, dude, 54 gold top. Listen, and I'm a terrible player, but I was just so.
You're not a terrible player, but man, you had a guitar habit, and I've seen you still have a little bit of one, don't you?
Yeah. I think it's mostly, and it comes down to my love of architecture. It's design. So it's like, ooh, look at the gold top, the all gold, not just a regular gold top, a 55 all gold. Oh, look at the Carina Explorer. There's a guy out your way, Matt, Mr. Banker, who's making the greatest fucking boutique guitars ever, And I just worship his obsession of detail of the old guitars, like me. I'm just so into it. And then I loved amps, like, oh God, this is original Vox AC30 Fawn. You can't get this anywhere. There's 10 made, like I just loved it.
Yeah, you had a blonde AC30, right? With the beeswax. Oh, and right. Super rare.
And then I had the 15, the AC 15 in Fawn, which is even rare. 112, 15 watt, same amp and half.
Do you have both of those amps still?
No. I sold everything basically to survive in the art world. I got no regrets at all. Sold a lot of stuff to move to LA. And then once I started comedy, I was just selling everything to, I found something I loved, and I'd just look around. I'd call them parachutes. I'd be like, over there, that thing's going to let me do comedy for another 2 months, poof, and it was a great, it was great to have those things as they went up in value, and I was able to sell them and still do art,
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I mean, I'm glad you don't regret any of it. Yeah. No. I'm glad you don't regret it. Cause it's like, I mean, you're doing what you're doing, you're living your dream. So that's like, if that's what got you there and, it's part of your life experience. Yeah. I mean, I've parted ways with so many things. It's like, it's like, I mean,
well, I'm at a point in life.
I have a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
What's that?
I'm at a point in life where I don't want to have anything except like a kick-ass small mid-century house. That's it, with some good, I got great rock memorabilia, just some shit hanging on the walls and just enjoy life, Yeah,
man. I think we're like, our youngest is off to college. And so we're downsizing at home. We're kind of like trying to have some digs down here in the Bahamas and just trying to just simplify and streamline. I mean, just to be able to do away with, some of the trappings. I mean, I've got a full stuff, that's going to always, not always, but that's always going to be a big thing for me. But I'm with you. I kind of want to just simplify and streamline, just because I got a family and just want to spend time with them and not just keep my head buried in the sand the rest of my life. It's like I spent 30 years in the studio. I still love being in the studio, but I don't want to be in there all the time.
Yeah. You know what I think about you before we get out of here?
What's that?
I think about all the engineers and producers and how in the early days, you just had to sit in there with like 15 cigarettes going at once, I think about that as I was watching the Beatles, the documentary, the recent one. Everybody just, and the equipment soaking in all the cigarettes. Cause I fucking hate cigarettes now, but I think about how I would just have like two going. Is this song any good? I don't even know, man. It sounds like the fucking, maybe a bridge should be here. And there's always the guy that's not smoking and they're not going to be like, hey, can you put that out or step outside, the
vibe buster.
Yeah. Like, who the fuck is this guy? Get him out of here. I'm thinking about the cigarettes that have gone down in every recording studio and all those engineers' lungs. But it's great to talk to you, man. I miss you and I can't wait to see you, dude.
Yeah. Thank you for it's my honor and pleasure, man. And thanks. I'm glad for the reconnection, and I look forward to seeing you. And I super appreciate the conversation.
Oh, it's great, man. Tell everybody where to find you if they want to work with you.
I have a website.
Yeah.
JacquireKing.com. There's a little info link in there. You can send me an email I'm available. I appreciate the opportunity. Yeah, you can find me on Instagram and my website. Both my name, just JACQUIREKING.
All right, man. Thank you so much. Hit me when you get back, and let's shoot the shit, dude.
Let's do it. Okay, we will. All right, take care, buddy.
See you, buddy.